This is ChatGPT, and I appreciate what Corey said earlier, that he was a skeptic, and then he kind of became maybe a reluctant believer as he started using it, just because he saw how easy it was and how it did do some things really well, and it helped make some of the things that he was doing easier. That would probably be my starting point for you as pastors. If you're like, I don't know what this whole AI thing is, I don't know what Chat GPT is, I don't know what Gemini, or um I would just play around with it. I guess the easiest way, like get into it. You can go to Chat GPT, and I have the premium version here, but you can do a lot on the free version. I think, Corey, correct me if I'm wrong, you're just on the free version, right?
No, I am way too cheap to use but the free version does actually a lot. It helps me at work, and there is very few things that they lock behind a paywall.
Sure. And the nice thing is, even the things that they do lock behind a paywall, eventually they release when they upgrade new stuff. Then all the premium stuff becomes the free stuff. And so, what I want to do, I'm just going to kind of give you a few short examples of some things that you can do with ChatGPT as a pastor. I've got some prompts here that I've already written up, but so if I were to just ask this to compile a list of relevant scriptures speaking on the issue of fear, right? Maybe I'm about to preach a sermon, or I'm being asked to write a devotion or something on the subject of fear. And so what would I normally do? Well, you can pull out your lexicon and you can pull out your books, or you can go to Google and search verses on fear in the Bible. Or you can do something like this. And this, again, it does the same thing. It's just faster. Like I think Google said, or I think Corey said it. So it said it's kind of a better version of Google. And so here, I'm just going to read this. Here's a list of relevant scriptures that speak directly to the issue of fear, offering comfort, instruction, encouragement for those struggling with anxiety, dread, or uncertainty. And then it kind of breaks into some subcategories here. God's presence overcomes fear. And so there's a few verses. God replaces fear with peace. Some more verses. Fear of man versus fear of God. And then one thing I want you to know about the way that these chat programs, it's meant to be conversational, which seems really foreign. And this will be a subject of a future video, the kind of transhumanism debate of like, I'm uncomfortable talking to a computer as if it's a person, and I totally get that. It's just important for us to understand that the way that these programs were designed, we communicate best with other humans. Right. So I can communicate to Corey conversationally really well. I can communicate to you because we're having a conversation. And so they've created these programs in a way to try their best to mimic that, because it's actually most effective for us to get to the end destination that we're actually wanting. And so that presents all sorts of moral challenges and ethical dilemmas that we're going to tackle on this channel in future weeks. But let me just give an example. So we have this response, and again, I apologize. I'm assuming you've never seen any of this, and so this is good. But maybe I want to tweak this. Maybe I want to see. Maybe this is the wrong translation. Give me this in the King James version, right?
You misspelled some stuff.
Oh, there we go. So give me this thing. Now think through for a moment the process that it would take to accomplish this, even with Google, going through each of these verses individually, getting a different translation, going to the Bible or a parallel, commentary or something like that. So we can just simply ask it, and it's got it all for us. It's right here. And so just think of the amount of time that you could save doing this. This isn't content. This isn't interpretation. This isn't AI telling you how to think. This is just listing out scripture for your study, for you to be able to actually do your work. What's another translation? We'll go, make it ESV, right? And we're going to really just put it through its paces here. And here you go. Here's all those same verses in the different translations. So that's really helpful. That's a good starting point for a lot of research. And so let's move to another. This is always a fun one. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You have to. We have a bias. It's good for us to understand that we have a bias, acknowledge the bias, so that way we can get past our bias. And so I'm going to go ahead and just start a new chat here. And I'm going to say, compare the soteriological views of John MacArthur and Leighton Flowers. And it's going to just start taking us through this. It's actually created a nice little chart for us. John MacArthur being a Reformed Calvinist, Leighton Flowers being a non-Calvinist Baptist, a provisionist. And then it goes through total depravity, election, atonement, grace, perseverance, human freedom. Key differences: human responsibility, ability, God's sovereignty and election, the extent of atonement, and so on. I mean, this is some good information that you would typically have to read an entire book from both of these individuals or listen to a sermon from either of these individuals to be able to get to this just understanding. Typically, a pastor, if you've gone to seminary or you read books, or you're just a ministry leader or even a congregant, I understand that there's going to be people who stumble into these live streams that are not pastors. That's totally okay. There's no veil here. We're not hiding behind secrecy. That's what we're trying to get rid of, that actually. And so, but you may say, man, I really like MacArthur. John MacArthur. I've got his ESV study Bible. I like his stuff, but what are some of the other ways that someone would interpret some of these passages? And so this is an easy way to get to that information. Let's list sources. And here's all sorts of sources to support the commentary that we just got, including links and books that you can, if you want to do further research, you could certainly do that. Again, really good information. This is not the end of the information, but it's an easy way for you to study. Let's look at I don't know, Corey, do you see anything that we should dive into here before we move on to the next tutorial?
No, I mean, not really. Other than something I like to do is I'm sorry, my brain just went foggy. To ask it to give me links, to give me where'd you get this information from? Because like it, just like I said, just because it says this is what he believes, I'm like, does he really believe that? And so I'm like, okay, well, let me give me, where'd you pull this from? And then I can then I can do a little bit of deeper research myself, or maybe I want to just read whatever that came from. I just want to go in deeper. Okay, cool. That was a great starting off place, but now I want to do the rest of it myself. So that's the usually my next step.
Yeah, and here's a great follow-up question. What are the main proof texts for either of these views? And we all know texts can be cherry picked, and that's why we can have two very different views on the same subject using scripture. And so that's why it's so important for us to take context into consideration. But again, this is a great, which I think this is funny that, Romans 3 is used for both. And so this is a good example of, you can't just look at a specific verse, and I'm not going to get onto a whole like hermeneutics here, but but this is good. This is good information. If I was to be developing a presentation for whatever reason, maybe it's in seminary or maybe it's for personal study, but I wanted to give a presentation on tulip. Maybe you're a Calvinistic pastor, or maybe you're giving a presentation opposing tulip. It's good for you to know the verses that are used to support these different things. In fact, I think, Corey, I'm debating your wife on Calvinism here pretty soon, aren't I? She's trying to back out of it, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's immortalized on stream now, so
I'll let her know.
We should do that on this stream. Actually, that would be.
She would hate it.
In the comments, let us know if you want that to take place. So let's move on to our next kind of thing here. We're gonna go to a new chat. Again, I'm copy and pasting a prompt here. How often are pastors expected to create graphics? Unfortunately, there's some great tools. Canva is fantastic for graphic design for non-graphic designers. Canva has a lot of AI tools in it now. We're gonna actually cover Canva in its own video at some point, but now you kind of almost don't even need that. Uh, I'll give an example. My church, we have a bulletin that goes out weekly. On the back of it, we have some little boxes. In each of those boxes, it's a specific size. It's just a square. And we kind of put a featured announcement in each of those. And so say this is a purely hypothetical, but say my church has a special business meeting coming up where we're going to vote on the budget. And we want that to be featured on the back of this bulletin. Well, I can literally just type this in here, create a square social media graphic, pause. There's a lot of ways that you can do this a lot better. This is high level. This is simple. We're going to have entire videos focused on creating good graphics to get you exactly what you want. This is meant to just be very basic. Create a square social media graphic to promote our upcoming special business meeting on July 10th at 8 p.m. in the sanctuary to vote on approving the church budget. So I'm going to hit enter, and we're going to see it's going to get started, and it's going to do its thing. It probably takes about 30 seconds. In future videos, there's different programs. ChatGPT has actually gotten really good with its image generation, but there's some other Midjourney. I use a lot. Ideogram I use for like a sermon title slide. There's some really good tools out there. A lot of them have paywalls, and so part of what we'll do is we'll kind of go over, as a pastor, we don't have unlimited budgets. And so if you start paying for every different premium AI platform, AI is kind of the new money grab right now. And so everyone's got a paid subscription for everything, right? And so we're not going to have a paid AI for pastors paywall yet. I'm just kidding. No, we're not going to. Because again, that's not the point. I have a full-time job. I'm doing this to try to help pastors. And so obviously, like I said, this is very simple. We're not gonna take the time to do this now because I want to try to keep us pretty close to an hour for the live stream here. But I could right here and say, give it a dark blue background with light beige font. Right. And so you can kind of just keep this conversation going and be tweaking it. Or if there's some information in there that's incorrect, tell it and it'll fix it. So and I will say it's really good with figuring out typos too.
And I was gonna say I wanted to. I know it's silly, but I'm terrible. I'm all thumbs. So I can't tell you how many times I've typed in the wrong thing and then it answered what I actually meant, and I'm like, well done, thank you.
Well, don't forget, spell check was the first AI tool that all of us used, and so we've been using AI for quite some time. So here's the last. I want to give one more tutorial before we kind of wrap things up for this stream, and this is, I think, one of the ways that I really enjoy using these tools. And so I'm going to go here. I'm going to start a new chat. And I'm going to copy and paste. This is going to take me a second. I got a lot of things I got to copy here. Okay, so I'm going to, the scenario here is I have written a sermon, and I'm going to put in a sermon that I've actually written and at this point given. And it was kind of a touchy one. It was on singleness, marriage, dating, and kind of that whole relationship gamut. And I was concerned regarding how the sermon might be received from different people in different relationship dynamics. And so, somebody who's single, maybe somebody who's widowed, somebody that's married, they're gonna take their context into the way that they receive a sermon. So I wanted to be keenly aware of that. And so this is not the exact prompt that I used, but I'm gonna just copy and paste my entire sermon. And that's the cool thing about these chats is they've gotten really good. You can put really long pieces of information, like 500-page books you can put into a prompt, which is wild. But so I've literally copied about 3,000 words. It's about a 30-minute sermon. It was given on February 16th. And I'm just going to scroll through. You can see it's long. But my goal, I'm going to put it in quotes. What was the prompt that I gave it? I'm asking it how might a single mother respond to this sermon? And I want it to be critical. I will mention this, and I'm sure Corey knows this, and I understand why. But these platforms, they can kind of come off a little too affirming,
Yep.
right? And so
Absolutely.
sometimes I like to give it permission to be mean to me and say, listen, be critical, tear this apart. I can handle it. I know I'm not the best preacher in the world, and there's going to be problems and issues with this sermon. And so, how might a single mother respond to this sermon? Be critical. And then I copy and paste the entire thing. Let's see what it says. And I haven't actually tested this, so we're really kind of going for it here. A single mother listening to the sermon might appreciate its overall heart and biblical foundation, but, and so here comes the negative, she could also offer some honest and important critiques. Here's a critical response that she might give. As a single mother, I came, and so this is actually kind of giving what a response might be from her. And so I'm not going to read this entire thing on stream, but let's just do this. The section on singleness emphasized freedom and undivided devotion to the Lord, which is biblically accurate, but it's also not my reality. Right? I could kind of see a person saying that, like, okay, I get how this makes sense on paper, but I don't feel that way. I'm gonna give you another little and Corey will probably laugh at this, but I'm just gonna give it a TLDR, which means too long, didn't read, and it will then summarize that entire thing for me in a much shorter, condensed version. So a single mother might appreciate the sermon's biblical truth, but feel overlooked. The message lumps all singles together and idealizes singleness as, quote, freedom, which doesn't reflect the demanding reality of raising kids alone. The closing prayer moment unintentionally excludes single parents. That's good to know. That was obviously unintentional, and that would be something that I'd probably want to give a little attention to in my actual delivered sermon. She'd want to feel seen, not just spiritually, but practically, and hopes future messages include the unique struggles and strengths of singles mom. Now, again, this is where you as a pastor, not every sermon can reach every person. So maybe you hear some of this, maybe you choose to take some of the critiques, and maybe you decide to move forward. But it's good information. It's good information for you to be able to, man, I tell you what, there's been times where I've had people approach me about an issue with a sermon that could have been prevented if it had been reviewed before I gave it. And so again, this is, I always bring out this ChatGPT can make mistakes, check important information. It can certainly do that in its critiques too. However, this is true. I did unintentionally exclude single parents in that concluding prayer as it was written. And so that's good information. And so that's just 4 quick ways that you as a pastor could easily use AI in ministry